Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Hopefully that's not too loud. So I've been told to help out with a wee introduction. So I know everyone's familiar with the post-afternoon slump. You know, you get the assignment in the morning, obviously quite a long day and keen to keep that up. So who here is interested in 3D printing? Nope. Well, hopefully, by the end of our talk today, that'll be everybody. So I'm doing a bit of research on our speaker, Hans Vermeulen, and I'll try to keep it to 1 minute. And I'll show you my notebook, actually. I've pretty much destroyed a page with the amount of notes I've taken. So I'll keep it as short as I possibly can. So Hans runs a company called Aectual. And I'm always into puns and plays on words and very smart branding with names. So Aectual is designed to kind of speak about actually building. So they design buildings using 3D printing. Their biggest value, and the thing I'm very excited for Hans to speak about, is sustainability. Now, one of their goals is to give everybody access to fully sustainable cities through 3D printing and building new buildings. I know it sounds obvious. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce Hans Vermeulen, who'll be speaking about data-driven design and buildings of the future.
Thank you. Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for the nice introduction. My name is Hans Vermeulen. I'm the CEO of Aectual. We're based in Amsterdam. Yesterday I flew in from San Francisco, so maybe I'm a bit still having a time zone issue, but I try to be upbeat today and talk to you about how data and robots are going to change the way how we make architecture, how we design architecture, and how we can give good design to 7 billion people in a more sustainable way. For that, we're building a platform where everybody can go to, and we're developed the last 2 years the full stack from, on one hand, design, on the other hand, the tools to make stuff, so the robots and the extrusion technology, the firmware behind it, etc. And at the same time, we develop the product lines to show what the technology can do for the different businesses within the AEC industry. Some of our clients, Nike, BMW, airports all around the globe. And we're around since 2017. It's a spin-off out of a design company called Dus Architects, which I'm running since 2004, but I will tell a little bit more about that. And it's all based on the fascination about how those little telephones, which are only around for 12 years, totally disrupted the way how we communicate and how we look at our screens instead of at each other on the street. How that was moved to the car industry, and we're fascinated in what are the effects of data-driven tools for the cities we're living in, for the buildings we're using every day, and how that can solve a part of the challenges to bring, in the end, customizable and sustainable architecture to everyone. And we have some challenges. It's quite a big industry with a 12 trillion on a global scale, but we're also very polluting. 50% of all the CO2 output is related to buildings. We work with standardized products which never fit, so we start cutting all the products before they go into the building, generating 25% of waste, causing a lot of, overtime for builders. We're missing out over 1 billion of customers, and if you have access to good housing, you can actually only choose out of the same, right? So only for the 1% they can afford an architect, and we want to bring good design and architecture to the happy 100%. Also in production or in productivity, you see actually a decline in our industry for the last 6 decades. And compared to other industries who embraced technology, we're running way behind. So it's time to, change a bit, because for 2,000 years, we actually are building still the same. On the left, you see the Romans. On the right, you see the workers of today. So the only way forward, we think, is to start to integrate digital tools into the production lines and connect finally the way we design in the computer to the actual act of making, and close the feedback loop from design to production back into the design, so we become more smart and accelerate the amount of building output. So you probably all know this, but with digital fabrication, it's less labor, less management, and one of my favorite is more design freedom for everyone. So this is how we started in 2011-12. This was our first printer we built with our own hands. It's actually an oversized Ultimaker. We bought a container from eBay and transformed that into, at that moment, one of the biggest printers on the planet. One of the things I really like about printing, which is only one part of the digital family, of course, is that it's an additive production method. So you only use the material you actually need. And in that sense, it's a zero waste production technology in its core, which is quite interesting. At the moment, we have 4 of those machines running in our factory in Amsterdam. And the technology is on the level that we're starting to license the technology out into the production facilities of our partner network in the different markets we're operating in. So we're talking Middle East, the US, and the UK. So it's about the machines, but it's also about what you push through the machines as a material and the resources. I think that's very important. So the first material we developed a couple of years ago was together with Henkel. It's a big German multinational. And we developed a bio-based polymer based on plants. So you can regrow it. It's renewable on that hand, but it's also fully recyclable. At a certain moment in 2013, we launched the 3D Print Canal House project, which was in Amsterdam and generated quite some media attention, up to Obama visiting. But to be honest, back in that days, we didn't really have the business case yet ready. So for us, it's really a project and a vehicle to understand what digital production can mean for the scale of architecture. And in the last years, we kind of started to dissect the house into product lines. And that's interesting because the industry is organized in product lines. So there is a market for floors, which is a 300 billion big. There is a facade market, which is another 500 billion big. There's and so on, and that adds up to 12 trillion in total. And our technology can tap into all those verticals and create value for the floor industry, the facade industry, and so forth, and so on. So in that way, we started to digitize those product lines. And the interesting thing is that with our technology, we can make them perfect fit for every building everywhere on the planet. So our market is existing buildings and new builds. So for those product lines, we develop full digital design to build or even installation pipelines, so the front-end tools to be able for customers to tweak the products, let's say the Nike ID for the building industry, then the back-end and generating machine codes for our own machines, but there's a lot of other machines available already in the market doing often not 24/7 yet, so there's quite some value to be unlocked. The material, we are not only focusing on one material, we're a multi-material platform. I will tell you a bit more about that. And then installation partners worldwide, so we are able to deliver worldwide. In short, with what we try to do is to connect the power of design and the smartness of the creative world and the industry with the scale of the making industry, like builders all around the globe. And I think that's somehow that's not in our industry, that's not happening. With our tools, we are able to create a feedback loop of data back into the design process, to the build process, right? It's a bit what you with normal in software industry, but when you bring it to the making, it's less normal. In short, the scalability of software connected to the scale of making. Building what we call a playlist for architecture. So we're really focusing on product lines, and at a certain moment, you can put all those products together into a full house solution or a full hospital solution or whatever. But you don't need to print everything if you don't want to. And in this way, we can already bring our technology to market now. So we have a few product lines available, and I will run through it with you today. The first one we launched 1.5 years ago was the floor product. And in the floor product, we offer designers and architects the freedom of patterns on any scale. So you can draw a pattern as an architect or take one pattern from our pattern library and apply that on 600 square meters to 60,000 square meters. Then we print the patterns in the factory. It goes flat pack to sides. Our biggest print bed at the moment is 25 square meters, 250 square feet. Here you see an example at the airport in Amsterdam. On site, the patterns are welded together on heat. So you have a seamless formwork actually of the pattern. Then it's poured in with a terrazzo mix, which is one of the oldest floors in the world. The Romans already used it. It's also one of the oldest recyclable products because it's a rest stream of the marble industry. And then we combined it with a bio-based binder instead of a cement-based binder. So it's, as a total product, it kind of tries to reinvent the product of terrazzo flooring. So that was on the airport. This is an example we did for BMW in Munich together with Patricia Urquiola, which is one of the most famous designers at the moment. I don't know if you know her, but she's kind of queen of design. And she made a pattern based on the Northern Lights. But you can do any pattern. So this is a more kind of natural sketch. And the interesting thing is that probably you know if you sketch and you slow down a bit, then the line becomes a bit thicker, and that really gives the craft of sketching. And with the software, we can kind of mimic the hand sketch. So that is nice. We do also other infills, so that's how we grow the products with concrete, for example, or a linoleum flooring. And that's how we also grow partnerships around the globe. This is with a local brewery in Amsterdam. We shredded the crates and print with that material, and instead of the marble, we put the crushed glass, actually. So it's kind of corporate responsibility, but in your floor. So in that sense, it's really to make design, but also tell the story and rethink how we use resources. The floor can go into panels. This is in Milan for a shoemaker. And then the other way how we use the technology is by creating formwork. And with that, we can create all kinds of bespoke concrete products. So on the left, you see the formwork. Then you pour concrete in it. You take the mold apart, you shredder it, and you put it back into the printer. And in that way, we close the loop on that level. And by making those designs, it actually creates a kind of digital design assets. And those designs can be reprogrammed to be perfect fit for any space. Because architecture maybe looks always the same, but it's always a little bit different. So the Nike idea is more about to choose the color of the swoosh. In our case, you can also change the size of the actual object. So it's a perfect fit and a fast installation. Another output in concrete is on the right. On the left, you see the more traditional way of concrete printing, where it's often used in a wet concrete. So you actually see only like a kind of more extrusion profiles popping up. We have developed a different material which makes it possible to print dry. And after printing, we cure it with water to get the actual concrete properties. In that way, we can have high-res shapes and end products which you can use for facades. And it's lightweight. So you only need only 40% of a normal concrete panel. So it's 60% less material. This is another example of how we can use the formwork and spray concrete fiber in it. So it follows the shape you want, also creating a non-flammable product, which can go up until 1,000 meters if you want. So from outside walls, the bio-based materials is used for interior walls, for room dividers, for example, and you can play with privacy, light, and it has also very good acoustic quality, which can be nice also in this room, because I hear myself like bouncing back from the wall. And with the concrete material, you can imagine that you can also put it on the outside of the facade, creating a so-called brise soleil, connecting the digital file with your geolocation, for example. And you can imagine that the sun angle in London is a little bit different than in Rio. And with that, you can create sun shaders and integrate it into beautiful designs, and at the same time lower the energy request from the building during the full lifespan of the building. This is an example in Tokyo, and I think what's also interesting is that there's so much knowledge and so much craft around the globe, which is dying out in a way because craftsmanship are expensive. It's maybe not that much people want to go into making and into that trajectory. So I'm quite fascinated by the idea that you kind of digitize craft and in that sense keep that knowledge alive and bring that in a digital way and can give it to the next generations. This is an example we did here in London for Nike Town, in which it's a little bit of a different way of using the technology, so not layer on layer, but pattern on pattern. It's a juxtaposition, a bit like the flight knit technique they use for printing their shoes. An interesting thing was that was done in 6 weeks. So from initial design idea to the actual installation here in London. And I think that also shows the power of closing that loop. So probably if you did your house that is mostly a tremendous amount of time needed. A lot of breakups are the reason for building your own house. And I think with our technology, at least we show that you can go faster in that. I also like to see this one. This was one of our first commercial projects we did with a container I showed you. So it was a temporary building for the Dutch presidency of the EU. And after 6 months, we kind of put the whole building into the shredder and we start to print another facade with it. So it's also to kind of, really redesign the way how we use resources, the way how we design stuff, so you can actually take things apart and reuse it in the next life. One other material we're kind of starting to work with is the waste we produce on these kind of events. You know, you get your water and it's a plastic cup. Bit weird for a startup event, I would say, but you can shredder it, and we kind of created this sun shader out of post-consumer waste. The thing is that these plastic, they do burn a bit, so we're still working on that. If anyone knows in the audience how to solve that or how to make steps in that, I'm here for the whole day, so please come to me. I think it's a beautiful thing to really reuse what's already existing, and we all know the ocean plastics, etc. But then you can take it out of the ocean, but what are you going to do with it in the end, right? So this is one solution. And then we use robots to print, but you can do a lot of other things with robots. This is an example of what our CTO did in his former life. You can put any tool on a robot arm. This is a diamond cutter going through a marble block, creating the most beautiful object. I will run this because it's quite a nice, beautiful thing to see. It's like butter, right? But it's hardcore marble. So printing and these kind of things is just the start of rethinking the possibilities, how we make stuff and how we house ourselves on this continent, on all the other continents, and probably also on other planets. So in that way, I want to share with you how we are building our playlist of architectural products. We have only 30 seconds left for questions, but I'm here around the whole day, so please come to me and we can exchange ideas. So thank you.
And I don't ever wear a suit and tie. Wondering if I can sneak out the back. Nobody's even looking me in my eyes. When you take my hand, finish my drinks.
Yeah? We can do 2 questions. 1. Yes. Yeah. How you're going to measure and how you make it perfect fit, right? That's the question. That's a good question, right? Because in that sense, the building industry is way behind in digitizing the current assets, let's say. For example, WeWork kind of really scans all their building to be sure that they know what they have. So that's a process we're in, and I believe that in 5 years from now, all buildings are digitally available and that it's way easier to connect on that scale and make perfect fit. So for now, our products are really based on rechecking measurements in this sense. Yeah. But it's a good question. Yeah. Another question. Oh, we have to stop, sorry. Okay, have a great day.
It's kinda crazy 'cause I really don't mind. Can you make it better like